ChiChi, what's going on? So you may have noticed I got a camera. I don't have lighting gear. I just have like a little stand-up lamp over here, but that'll have to do for now. But anyway, I just wanted to make this quick video for you so that you could see how I used Serum in this track here to make the bass sound that you hear. Because the only thing that you're hearing when you listen to this loop is just a kick, a snare, and then Serum, and then one little effect that I made at the end. So yeah, let's get into it. So here's the kick and snare channel. Just pretty standard. It's just a kick that I made out of a top and a bottom layer. It's these guys here. Little kick that I made in kick 2. Let me just see if I can solo that. Let's turn that off and these on. Now, if it sounds a little distorted, that's because I have double processing on it. Oh no, I guess these are off. Okay, great. So here's the sub layer is just this kick and kick 2. If we take the filter off, but I only wanted the sub, and I wanted to layer it with only the top layer of this kick. So those two together and processed is what you hear there. So we'll turn those off, turn that back on. And I turned it down on the group because I noticed the bounce that I sent you the kick kind of felt like it was taking over everything. And especially when you go back into like the mastering chain here, and I take my utility off and add this little mastering plugin, that's plenty loud. So anyway, that is the quick rundown of the drums. This patch here in Serum. So this is something that I threw together in probably literally 2 minutes. This is why I like Serum so much. You can pick a wavetable, and what a wavetable is it's a series of waveforms. So if you scan through the wavetable position, it's giving you a different waveform as you scan through it, and then wherever this wavetable position knob is in that sequence is what that oscillator is going to be recreating anytime you play a note. So what I like to do is go into the actual editor, and I'll assign an LFO to it. That's what I've done here. This LFO shape, the amount of time that it takes to make one revolution of this is going to be an 1/8 note. So I've made it to where this shape spans the entire, from beginning to end, the entire 3D spectrum of that wavetable. And that's what gives it that movement and that little bit of extra distortion as you go through it. And then oscillator B is just, you can tell there's no movement there at all. It's just a simple, it's like a sawtooth wave, but it's almost like a pulse width modulated sawtooth wave where it's a little bit off axis. And that just gives it a little bit more grit to it. And this is something that I have the level almost all the way down on it now. You can see it adds a little bit more grit to it. So in this example of this, I'm actually not even using it at all because I have the level all the way down, so you won't even hear it. And then all I've done over here is just turn on the sub oscillator and tune the sub down 3 octaves. This main oscillator here is only down 1 octave. Then we go to the effects. There's some distortion on it, a little bit of chorus, some reverb, and then the Serum version of the over-the-top compressor out of Ableton's multiband settings. If you go over here into your audio effects and hit multiband dynamics, and you drop it down, you'll see OTT. That stands for over the top, and that's essentially what this compressor in the effects section is going to be doing here if you click on the multiband option. And I've turned the mix all the way up on that. So let's turn some of these off just so you can see what they do. So let's real quick. Chorus, reverb, and compressor. So you can hear it's doing quite a bit to it. So when we put just the distortion on, there's all these different settings in here. So that's adding quite a bit of grit to the original sound. Then we put chorus on it. You can hear the chorus takes away a little bit of the high frequencies. Then we add this plate reverb. And again, all of these have dry wets, so you can dial them in. And then the compressor is what really kind of takes it over the top. So what we have at the end is we print that down into audio. And what it gave me was these two. So you heard that tail, that little reverb tail at the end of every time a note releases. That's actually this. And what I did was I brought the audio bounce from that down into a separate track. So that's the whole thing right there, coming from these MIDI notes. And I just routed the output to a blank audio track and then duplicated that track and isolated only the... Actually, I didn't duplicate it. This is the original track, and then this is just a blank audio track. So what I went through and did was cut all of those tails out and drag them up to the track above, and then reverse them. Then I made fades in between the ends of the bass notes and the beginning of this little slip here, the little tails. So what you hear at the end of that, when all of that is put together, is these two. That to me sounded better than just that like really, really short plate reverb tailing off, and it gives it just kind of a cool spatial effect. You can see on the slips here, I did the same sidechain compression as on the actual main bass track, and then filtered those tails up a little bit, and then gave them some of that simple delay trick to spread it out to the sides. And then we're not done, because one of those tails I actually stretched out, like time stretched it, and then reprinted it, and then time stretched it again and reprinted it, and then put a high pass filter on it and some auto pan that modulates up, and then a utility plugin as well. And if we go to automation mode by hitting A, you can see the utility, so we'll go ahead and drop that down. You can see the auto pan amount. We'll drop that down, and then that doesn't move. So this is just a longer version of that. And so it's that same reverb tail, it's just giving this auto pan that comes up. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention about the auto pan. If you open up auto pan just as it is, that phase is at 0. I wonder why that's not doing it. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So the phase will be, I think, at 180 when you get it out by default. And what that does is it's a panning. So you can hear, if you're on headphones especially, how that goes back and forth between the right and left speaker. I didn't want that. I just wanted it to go all the way in and all the way out. And that's what that tremolo effect is. And then you can see the gain here, just to make it creep in a little bit more. And then that layered with the end of the bass sounds like... And then it can loop over again. So that's how we made that sound. But then going back to this bass line here, you can see that there are sends, 7 and 10, or I'm sorry, This one doesn't have any send to it, but this one has up to -7 sent to this return track that I've labeled bass reverb. So what we're going to do real quick is put this up to the full amount. We're going to bring that up to Unity and just solo it. So we'll go back over here. This is what the main part of the bass signal is being sent to. And that is a reverb with some low cut on it. I left the spin and the chorus on, and the chorus is actually pretty high, so you get some like detuned sort of feel with it. It's on high quality, size is at 100, and the decay time is just over a half a second. We'll just turn these off for now. So you can see that didn't do much to it by itself, but when we squash it with some supercharger, and then also giving it some of that spread trick with the simple delay, and then some EQ8 to scoop out some of the mids, and then sidechain it to the actual kick and snare group with that portion of the bass itself. So everything in the bass is being sidechained to the kick and snare, getting out of the way for those things. So we'll go ahead and collapse all these down again, and then basically what was going on was, you know, if you have this full bore like that, it's way too much. So I had just pulled it down to infinity and then played the bass line and then blended it up in there, just standard like parallel processing stuff, and decided that -15 is what sounded good. So we'll hear the bass line without it, and then I'll add it back in. So you can see, that's how we arranged the bass, programmed the bass, arranged it, and then processed it. So I hope you enjoyed that. Yay, finally in the process of making something cool. So I'm going to keep going on this. Have a good one, buddy.